You're listening to Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to the Thursday episode of Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. I'm Rebecca Larson, and once again, I am joined by my brilliant co-host, Dr. Emma. Welcome.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm sucking up to you today. That's why I called you brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I can take a compliment. I used to not be able to take a compliment. I would get really uncomfortable when everybody would compliment me. Now I'm like, yeah, I think you're right, Rebecca. I am brilliant.
You're like, no, stop.
Maybe some of the synonyms, other things you might want to say. Mention my hair. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of brilliant, you got your exhibition coming up, don't you?
Yes. So, very smart people that are very in tune with what we're doing found out that the British Museum on short notice will be closed on the 9th of July because it did announce that's when it was going to start. So we can't see it if it's closed. It's going to be closed on the 9th. On the 10th of July, so this week, the exhibition starts, and it's a case in the Money Gallery.
Ooh.
It's very cool. It's going to be very cool.
I'm so excited for you, but I'm also really bummed because I know we talked about my trip to England this fall, and I have postponed it, so I won't be able to see Emma's wonderful exhibition. I'm kind of bummed about this, and I'm really sad that I'm not going to see it.
Well, I'm really sad you're not going to see it, but I am very committed to next week taking you guys on a journey to see it, to make you feel like you're there. So, yeah, I will make sure to record there, to maybe even do a live. Who knows?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And if you guys remember last summer when I went to England, my buddy Nigel followed me around and filmed, and he's actually going to meet Dr. Emma at the museum.
Get ready, Nigel.
I think he thought I was crazy to hang out with. I can't wait to see what he thinks about hanging out with you.
Oh, well, he'll be delighted. You know that.
I know. He's a good guy. He'll have fun.
Yeah, and there's people who have shown interest because this exhibition really has some highlights, important highlights, right? That I can now share because it's going to be happening, guys. So the portrait medal of Anne Boleyn, because this exhibition is focused on portrait medals, and this is because I participate in a research project at the University of Murcia with Noelia Garcia Perez, my PhD advisor and the scientific director of the Female Perspective at the Prado. So she was very smart to realize that these were propaganda tools, especially portrait medals, because portrait medals were given to commemorate important events. And what we see in the 15th century, for example, is that women start to appear in portrait medals, especially in Italy, where the Renaissance is developing. But there are pioneering figures in other parts of Europe and you start to see female rulers in portrait medals and in coins, like Isabel I of Castile.
Who's that? I don't think I've ever heard that name before.
Well, if you don't know who Isabel I of Castile is, I recommend you to listen to the first episode of Parallel Lives, where we talked about Isabel of Castile and her daughter, Catherine of Aragon.
Yes.
And Isabel of Castile is really a pioneering figure. And one of my goals with this exhibition was to show how important Isabel I of Castile was for the first woman who ruled in England, Mary I of England, who was her granddaughter, right?
Yes.
Who has some of the most spectacular portrait medals that I've seen in my life, some of which are in the British Museum and will be in the exhibition too.
Oh, this is going to be so exciting. You guys have to go see this exhibition. How long is it running again?
So 3 months. It'll be in the Money Gallery, and you can, as I say, on the 10th it starts. So until October, this is a case that rotates. So now they have an exhibit about Pride. So happy Pride to everyone too.
Yes.
And yes, it's going to rotate 3 months. So all the summer, really.
Oh, exciting. I'm just so bummed that I'm not going to be able to see it, but
Another
there'll
cool
be
thing
another.
about it, I know people are very, very interested in that image of Anne Boleyn because really it's the only portrait we
Mhm.
have that we can assure it's her because it's an inscription and that portrait medal. That's why portrait medals are so important. Is that, working on this exhibition with Tom Hockenhull, who is the keeper of coins and medals at the British Museum. He has the coolest job on earth. Come on. He does, and he's a super nice guy. And we were going through these medals, and me and my hyperfixation, and I was very determined to see, this portrait medal of Anne Boleyn is not a unique image. It's not. It's designed to pair with one of the king. That's why she's Anna Regina, right? And the most happy. Um, and I think I might have found a portrait medal of Henry VIII that is a pairing for it. Tom believes it could be. I'm going to put him on the spot now.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, I guess while you're there and you do some filming, we'll have to have you talk with him about that a little bit more.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. I'll try. No, he does. Tom has very interesting videos too. In the British Museum, they do a very good job with their dissemination of what they do. And Tom has he's a specialist in ancient coins, so but he knows everything about the medals because he's been keeping the medals for a long time.
Yeah.
But the British Museum has really good resources in that sense. I also want to recommend in that sense, and I like a lot of visual content because I'm an art historian, but also I think everybody enjoys that. We were talking about that in the previous episode. Dr. Rachel King has a very interesting video on that necklace, that H and K necklace, the heart shaped pen that was found, became very famous. What, a year
Yeah.
or 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Um, this is a super interesting video. The Dr. Rachel King, who has led this research that I participated in, has done on dating. So dating this. So another way to become a historian, art historian, to know more. It's not just in the books. Now we have a lot of content too in these institutions, like we were talking about. The Prado Museum and the female perspective and all those sources. That's a place you can go and feel safe that information is going to be critical, right?
Yeah.
Because after working on this exhibition, I can tell you the British Museum doesn't accept just anything. So it's very good to know that whatever information you see in an upcoming exhibition has been thought through a lot
Yeah.
to give
Yeah.
you
That's
just the
good.
most updated experience. Depends also on the curator, right? In my case, because I study women and the evolution of the image of power of women, another very interesting medal that will be there is a medal of Elizabeth the First. Well, there will be two medals of Elizabeth the First of England, but one that in the reverse, the side that is not the portrait medal, has a phoenix.
Mm.
Yes, and because these women are immersed in the Renaissance, they use a lot of symbology, symbols. We've talked about this, and our audience likes symbology. So the Phoenix has connections to Anne Boleyn too, and Sylvia was the one to put me on the track, Sylvia Sorberton, about this. So shout out to her for her great work on that. She was gracious enough to send me a very detailed email with all the literature, and I wanted to just, you know, share that I'm very grateful to her, and I think it's gonna look very cool because there's a side where we see the start of this in Europe with figures like Isabel of Cahill, but also Mary of Burgundy because she becomes very important for the Habsburgs, which we talk a lot about, and how that has a huge impact in Tudor England. But sometimes we don't make those connections,
Yeah.
between the empire, Spain, and England. We just Mary the First just appears from no. She comes from a tradition of women who are gaining power in Europe, basically coming from these two families, the one family, the Habsburgs, but
Yeah.
in Flanders and in Spain. It's going to be very cool.
It all sounds very cool. I can't wait to see how it goes for you, and I can't
The
wait to
tool is
watch.
there. There's a portrait medal of the tool, and I don't think it's been exhibited It definitely wasn't exhibited with the one of Anne Boleyn in the Six Lives exhibition in the National Portrait Gallery.
Mhm.
So this is, I'm not sure if it's the first time they're going to be exhibited together. We'll have to ask Tom.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Now that we're done
He looks
plugging,
very Francis the First in that medal,
he
even
does.
though he
Yeah.
does. So that is also telling us a lot about how when you see the portrait medal of Mary the First by Jacopo d'Atrezzo, you're looking at a person for sure. You're like, this is a picture in gold of someone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very similar to the Antonis More, so also like a pattern, right? But in the case of the Anne Boleyn and the Henry VIII, hmm, and we'll
Mm.
have to ask Tom about what happened to the Anne Boleyn medal because it
Yes.
was struck, right?
Yeah, the nose is all messed up.
After it arrived to the British Museum.
Okay, all right. We gotta catch up on how the last episode went and get into today's episode. We could always sit and just talk forever. If you guys just want an episode of Dr. Emma and me just
Talking
talking
forever.
forever about random stuff, we
Talking
could.
forever.
That's what we do. But let's talk about the last episode because the last
I think that
episode.
was in every school report that I ever have had. Talking forever.
It's a good thing now. Look, now you're on a
I know, but when I
podcast.
was a kid, I used to have a hard time when there was like the teachers, when the parents went to see the teachers to see how everything was and blah blah. And my parents would come home and it would be like, "Set your grades are great, but you talk way too much." And I'd be like, "Are you sure?" Yeah, there's one teacher who said that what they used to do in the 90s in Spain is he talked a lot. You were just sent to the back on your own, right? Move your chair and your
Go to the
table
back.
physically.
Stop being disruptive.
Yes. This teacher said, and she was talking to herself.
Now that I can believe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so cute. See, that's what I love
It
about
wasn't
you.
cute when my parents came home every time they were like, shh, stop talking so
You've
much.
you've just found an outlet for it now. See?
I
No,
wish I could say I talk less now, but that
she
would
does.
be a
She doesn't talk less now. Oh, I love you. You're the best. Okay, let's get into listener feedback. So the last episode that we did was Mary of Hungary and
Yes.
Margaret Roper, the daughter of Sir Thomas More. And that was
Cool
another,
ladies.
yeah, that was another fun episode. Again, people are really enjoying the parallel lives idea. Thank you, Dr. Emma, for stealing it from antiquity.
You're
Not
welcome.
stealing it. It wasn't copyrighted.
Inspiration.
That's right. That's right. Inspired. But one of the things that I saw on YouTube that I want to share was from Maximilian. And of
Oh,
course,
Maximilian the Emperor?
yeah, that's who it is the
Oh,
emperor.
great.
But Maximilian said that he left a long message, so I'm only going to read part of it. But he thinks that you need to start a book one day. And well, we're not going to get into that right now.
No, because that's going
Uh,
to trigger some anxiety.
and he said the way you and Rebecca talk about these people, that's how history should be seen and told. Empathy matters, and you both really get that, I think.
Oh, yeah, I read this comment. Yes.
Yeah,
That empathy part really struck me because yes, I think that's what we bring to the table. And a lot of people, not just us,
yeah,
but I think
yeah,
you can tell when someone is, you have to distance yourself from someone who lived 500 years ago. But we're
yeah,
still just humans that behave very similarly
yeah.
because we're not that different to the
No,
people that lived in the 16th century in many ways and respects. And when it comes to being jealousy or when it comes to love or when it comes to power, especially power, because we talk about people in power mainly.
yeah, yeah,
Power does things to you, and I think the good thing about parallel lives in the case of the people that we talk, the women we talk, that power for women is very different. It's been called soft power and all that, and it takes a lot of psychological effort to persuade, to influence, to put up with a guy who's a king who's doing whatever he wants, right? Or your brother who's the emperor and tells you to marry the oldest guy in Europe.
yeah,
So I think these women show that with a good education and a good upbringing and a safe environment, People do much better. They're very efficient. And when a woman is given a shot in the world of men, she usually does a good job. An
Yeah.
educated woman who is sure of herself and has been, if you treat people like garbage and you throw them in a castle in Tordesillas to rot, they don't do that well.
No,
No.
no, they don't.
Fernando of Aragon.
Well, thank you, Maximilian. He's been very active, leaving
Yeah.
comments. That it's been fantastic. Of course, YouTube there's been so many comments over there. We're still continuing the discussion in the chats over on Patreon as well. So just a reminder, if you want to join the chat community on my Patreon,
Yes.
that's free. You just sign up as a free member, you can join the chats. If you want to pay to be a member, then you're going to get, commercial free episodes. You're going to get the episodes early and more. But
yeah, I saw a comment about, I knew it was going to happen about my Anne Boleyn remarks. I can gather many sources that talk about how Anne Boleyn was just, and I've said this before in the podcast, she just couldn't handle the pressure at one point and lashed out, and it's what happened. So I'm not judging her. I'm saying it's what happened, and that has consequences in a place where protocol. Remember, when we were talking about Rubens and Velázquez, I don't know if you realize the point was like appearances matter, and if you are a queen, you can't be throwing fits, insulting people, and threatening them because you end up with your head chopped off. On the 19th of May,
oh, see,
1536.
as soon as you said that, I pictured Thomas More's pickled head in a jar. Thank you very much.
Great mind thinks alike, because I was thinking, should I say something about the
I
pickled
know.
head?
These are the things I remember.
It was
from our
already
conversation.
pickled by the time Anne's head was chopped off.
Right.
So at one, yeah.
I'm sorry I brought it up again.
No, but it's all Henry VIII's fault. Let's go back to what, when you have someone, I don't want to draw any parallels with the current world. When we have someone who is just the most powerful person who is not leading with empathy,
yeah,
you get a very disruptive world around you.
Yes.
Especially if you're in power and you're like lashing out like Henry was.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine for example, how could Mary and Elizabeth reconcile what they happened to them and go back to being with their father? Those poor girls. No wonder they grew up to be badass women.
Yeah, that would have been very difficult. But what do? You have to survive. You have to do whatever it takes to survive. And your father's the king. So
yeah,
who knows? One saw her father, ship her mom off. And the other one, heard about, because she was too young, but heard about her father killing her mother. Like, that'd be terrifying. What's he going to do to me, right?
Imagine Juana when they were like, yeah, your husband was poisoned by your father.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
Great. Awesome. Okay.
Maybe I'll just stay here in this prison.
Maybe I'm 8 months pregnant and you guys are, giving me a hard time. Incredible. So we do have to I think empathy is good. You still have to realize there were people and it was brutal.
Yeah.
And I think that's at the core maybe of why it's so important to bring women into the game of history, because you read some of these books written by great Tudor historians of the 90s and they're just so harsh. And she lied, she didn't know this, she didn't know that.
Yeah, brutal.
And the men were all like, he was the most dashing man, the most shrewd, intelligent ruler, and she was dumb. She was just, too emotional.
Well, speaking of handsome men, I need to. You're like, where is she going to go with this? I'm transitioning here a little bit because in the last episode we talked about Thomas Seymour, didn't we?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's like, now I get where you're going with this. Yeah. Okay. So in the last episode, you mentioned how we need to have a parallel lives for Thomas Seymour, and I was like, I have no idea who I would pair him with. Well, we got some suggestions, and they're actually the same suggestion. So Leah sent an email, and Douglas left a comment suggesting Thomas Seymour and Robert Dudley.
Ooh,
yes.
Cool. Well, you're the one who has to approve on that because you're the expert on this. So I'm just gonna The handsome man is your realm, Rebecca, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I don't know. I have to think about this one because I feel like the Thomas Seymour part's going to get ugly, and there's part of
Historical beards, a new series, a spin-off.
right. We'll
And you just
see.
compare people with great beards.
Yes, just as long as they're like not big long ones where food gets stuck in, right? That's
Right,
fine.
right. You made that point clear last time.
I'm still going down that road. Keep it
Okay.
groomed. Keep it
Keep it groomed
groomed.
and clean, please.
Yes,
Hydrate your
please.
beard. It's just
I,
hair. Just take care of it. If you must wear a beard because you need makeup.
right. Right, because Emma doesn't like beards. She's all
Hmm.
about the clean
No, I
shaven.
mean, some men, like,
Yeah. Okay.
a good example of a man that looks better with a beard. Viggo Mortensen from Lord of the Rings.
Oh. I have to now
He
go look
played
him up.
Aragon, which is not Aragon, Catherine Aragon, is
Yeah.
Aragon in Lord of the Rings. Never mind.
Anyway,
Anyway,
we're good. Let's get to today's topic, shall we? Now that
yes.
we're an hour into this episode and we haven't even mentioned today's topic.
I don't want to talk about beards anymore. It's like
No.
you when you talk about parrots. It's not really your thing, right?
No.
No, beards are
I
not
mean
my thing.
parrots are cool, but yeah, anyway. So
I'm going to bring up a parrot later, by the way.
great, awesome. Awesome. Today we're talking about two more women in history.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, do you want me to try and pronounce this one?
Yes, please.
Oh my gosh. So Emma's been working with me on this and we'll see. So when I read the name in my
Hmm.
American accent, I would pronounce it Isabel Clara Eugenia.
Yes. Yeah.
But Emma is trying to get me to say it Isabel Clara Eugenia.
Muy bien. Estoy muy
Yes,
orgullosa
okay.
de ti. I'm very proud of you,
Thank
Rebecca.
you.
Rebecca.
I've been practicing. So
Rebecca
we're doing
Larson. We're going to
and anyway, and the other woman that we're comparing her to is Anna of Denmark, who we've talked about on the show before with guests.
Yes, we
Yes.
have. And here I'm showing the book by Gemma Field. I love this picture of Anna of Denmark.
Yeah.
And I love this book. It's a very, very good book. Shout out to Gemma who came to talk to us, and who I'll be working with later this year in the
That's
U.S. Center
right.
for British Art. I am so excited. She knows so much about fashion. I mean, you can tell every time she does. They have a great channel too on Instagram. They do sometimes videos about 17th century fashion is different to 16th century
Mm,
fashion, which is what I'm more used to, right?
yeah.
And it's just fascinating how she knows so much about that, but also about how Anna, it was just, someone who came to there's many women in the history of England, many queens who have come to open England a little bit to the world again, like Catherine of Aragon did, and Anna of Denmark did too, and who were greatly influential in the education of their children, because Anna of Denmark is really influential in the education of her children, and her son, Charles I, becomes the biggest art patron that has been in England.
Yeah.
It was because of Anna,
Yeah.
and she had a bond with Isabel Clara Eugenia. So that's why we chose them. They're contemporaries. So one is Queen of England, becomes first, she's Queen of Scotland,
Yeah.
You want to go over a little bit their biographies, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I think that's probably good.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. Obviously they were both royal daughters.
Mhm.
Let's talk about each who their parents were and what that looked like.
Okay, so I'll start with Isabel Clara Eugenia. Who's older? Isabel. I know. Oh, Anna was born in 1574.
Ooh,
So she was born 3 years before Rubens. Just to like set
Isabel
getting
was born in 1566, it looks like.
who?
Isabel.
Isabel 1566.
Yes.
So Isabel is older.
Yes.
But yeah. So I guess I looked up Anna, and Anna was born in 1574. And why I brought up Rubens is because they're both into Rubens, commission works from Rubens. So these women have connections not only politically, but also in artistic patronage, which is
Yes.
something that comes up in Gemma's book. But I think there's a lot more to uncover because Gemma's opened a very, very interesting door. So that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I chose them. Um, and in the case of Isabel Clara Eugenia, the other reason why I chose her is because she comes from this listening to Alejandro talk about the genealogy of painters made me think about the genealogy.
It's
Very
a hard
difficult
word.
word.
There's a lot of vowels
Yes,
in that word.
there is a lot of vowels in that word. Of women art patrons in the Spanish monarchy. And this is what Noelia and I study, right?
Yeah.
So starting with Isabel of Castile. So Isabel Clara Eugenia is an heiress, not only politically to Isabel of Castile, but also in the artistic patronage that has just gone from like exchanging portraits with Henry VII to like, oh, this cool dude Rubens is going to work now for for me and be a diplomat and go to England and try to make a truce because he's a diplomat and a cool dude and the best painter of the long Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
So these women are marketing mothers 2.0, so 17th century, just explosion because the Baroque is dramatic.
Yes. Yeah. These are two fascinating women again. And I think the most fascinating thing that I discovered, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is how old Isabel was when she got married. She was
Isabel
older.
Eugenia? Yes,
Yes.
yes. So because she was, I didn't mention their parents.
Yes.
Isabel Eugenia was a daughter when Mary the First of England dies. Philip the Second of Spain, he's already Philip the Second of Spain, goes back to Spain and marries Elizabeth of Valois, a French princess, and brings Sophonis van Guisola, the famous painter, to teach her how to paint. And then he has two daughters, Isabel Clara Eugenia and Catalina Micaela.
Mm.
And I was going to bring up a parrot because in Buckingham Palace, they have a picture of these girls with a parrot, very famous. That's why they have it in Buckingham Palace, right?
Yes.
In the green drawing room. Yes. In the President's Chamber in Hampton Court, there's a picture of Isabel Clara Eugenia. She just becomes the golden child of Europe, of Philip II, because he doesn't until he has his son.
Yeah.
And because in the Spanish monarchy, they know that boys can die and everything can change very quickly. But it's true. Philip kind of gives her a lot of presents, right? Just she's like a queen in the waiting for a long time until she marries her. Guess who she marries? She's a Habsburg.
Her cousin.
Yes.
Her uncle. Her brother.
No, the brother-sister thing, that was the limit. Okay?
They drew the line there. No brother and sister.
First cousins, which is like your brothers and sisters, really. Because first cousins are pretty close. Yeah, she marries him not because, they fell in love, whatever. They were trying to save the Habsburg rule in the Netherlands, really. And Philip II had a lot of trouble with that. And that's why he decides when he dies that Isabel Clara Eugenia and her cousin, who will get married, the Archduke Albert, will marry and become co-rulers. So he's not just giving it to him.
Yeah.
It's with her. And if they have a son or a daughter, that line establishes there. Because Albert dies, Isabel Clara Eugenia can no longer do that, and she becomes governor again, a governor. So that's the connection to the previous. See the genealogy? Oh, I said it right that time.
You did. I think it's interesting how the Habsburg line is. They're totally okay with letting women rule. They're like, yeah, you can be a governor, you can be a regent.
Yes, because they are educated with that humanist program that Isabel of Castile establishes. Women have a very high level of education in the Habsburg family. So who are you going to trust more than your highly educated sister who is loyal to you? Because you're a dynasty, you're a family.
Yeah.
It works the same way now. It's just in other ruling houses, there wasn't this idea about women being it started later. Anna of Denmark, and Gemma says this in her magnificent book about her. her father was very influential in her bringing the King of Denmark, Christian IV, and gave her a lot of empowered her, you know? So Anna came to Scotland to be the queen of James the Sixth of Scotland. Then he becomes James the First of England. Really to open the Scottish court to a new European way of thinking, because the Danish monarchy was important, you know? This guy, Christian, was building palaces. Actually, Gemma talks about how the palaces that then Anna has and develops when she's Queen of England or have parallels with those palaces that she saw growing up. Yeah. So in that sense, Jem and I have a very similar approach to how we study. It's a foreign queen doing exceptional things because she's been raised in a very cultivated, high Renaissance court. Yeah. Basically same as Catherine of Aragon.
I was just thinking that. I was like, there's a parallel lives between Catherine of Aragon and Anne of Denmark.
Oh, we should bring Gemma. Listen to this. In 1608, so one of the things Anna of Denmark would do is show herself as someone pro-Spain because she wanted her children to marry into the Spanish monarchy. That's why she developed a close relationship with Isabel Clara Eugenia. Again, let's remind each other how close the Netherlands and Flanders and this very territory is to England. And another thing that Anna loved was partying, which I can relate to Anna in that sense too. It said the mask of beauty, and she wore a magnificent gold and diamond collar that had been gifted by Philip II of Spain to Mary Tudor on the occasion of this. And there was a cipher that said P and M, Philip and Mary. So a jewel that had belonged to Mary Tudor because she just was a Spanish. She had a Spanish connection there. And then again, very interesting, Anna had a little tablet, a little image of Isabel Clara Eugenia, a little miniature that she carried with her everywhere, the Infantor's picture. And it was so valuable to her that in August 1615, during a hunt, she lost it. And much to James' charging, called a halt to the chase until it was recovered.
Oh, wow.
And she had it mended several times. That means that it was used a lot.
Yeah.
I think she would talk to her when she had a fight with James. What do you think?
Oh, possibly. You know, I carry around a picture of you on my phone all the time. And when I get upset, I just talk to it.
Oh, but didn't you? I mean, this was something we used to do as teenagers. When you had a good friend, maybe they would give you, when you took those pictures for like a passport or whatever, they would give you more.
Yeah, or school. For us, it would be like school pictures. You always get
like school pictures. Yeah. Or you give school pictures, your kids to friends, and they're always. I love going into American kitchens because they're always full of those Christmas cards with pictures and that. Yeah. That's what the thing is. The picture helps you to contact emotionally with that person, even though they're not present. So Anna and Isabel Clara Eugenia exchanged pictures. Incredible, amazing, show-stopping pictures that are still in the Prado Museum, some in the Royal Collection in England, others, and spread in other collections in England and other places because the collection of Charles I of England, the son of Anna of Denmark, was sold. A large part was recovered, but not everything.
Yeah. I love like how all of our episodes kind of tie in together with each of them, because we were just talking about Rubens not that long ago, and Rubens plays a part in this episode too, doesn't he?
Rubens is everywhere. I mean, this guy. I think we have several topics that we could big topics, right? And we talked about my connection to the research that Noelia does on the construction of the image of power of women and that genealogy of powerful women through patronage. Then with Alejandro, we have the connection with the artistic patrons, right? The artists. And Alejandro's book, his dissertation was on the patronage of Isabel Clara Eugenia and Rubens. This is his book that he published. I don't want to say because he's going to get mad at me. This was a long time ago, Alejandro.
a couple of years ago. Let's just say that.
Maybe 1999. It's an amazing book, but it's difficult to find. Okay.
Mm.
So if you want to read about this connection between Isabel Clara Eugenia and Rubens, you have a catalog of this exhibition because one of the most important commissions that Rubens gets from Isabel Clara Eugenia is so you have here. It says Faith and Glory, the Infanta Isabel Clara Eugenia and the Triumph of the Eucharist. So she asks him to design a series of tapestries that are the most spectacular tapestries in the 17th century.
Wow.
And then if you want more Rubens, because you can't get enough,
Yeah.
I'm going to remind you about last year he did an exhibition on Rubens and his workshop. I think this is amazing because you can tell that it's about the construction, the craft of painting, which is something that is not so talked about, I think, sometimes for great artists. So I thought that was amazing. And I want to recommend, you remember he said, this is the genealogy of the art historians of the Spanish monarchy. Remember he mentioned Jonathan Brown was his PhD advisor?
Okay.
So Jonathan Brown, many years ago with the Prado Museum and Yale, so we're connections and everything here. The Sale of the Century, Artistic Relations Between Spain and Great Britain, 1604-1665. And this was an exhibition, and it was curated by Jonathan Brown and one of my personal favorite historians of all time, John Eliot, who wrote about the Spanish monarchy. And if you ever want a good study on the modern era in Spain, you have to read Eliot. He was amazing. So what I'm saying with this is all of this is connected, but there's still new research coming out because one of the earliest connections between Rubens and Spain is the fact that the Queen of Spain, so the first wife of, I think I'm going to get this right, well, Philip IV, Elizabeth of Bourbon, buys pictures by Rubens that are installed in the Alcázar, this place where the painting of Mary Tudor and all these paintings of Anna were a series of pictures of hunting scenes.
Mm.
Very spicy hunting scenes, okay? Because there's a lot of nude women.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
What makes them spicy?
I'm going to go there. Very spicy, saucy hunting scenes, okay? With names and satires and Diana hunting, the goddess of the hunt. And these are hung in the Queen's area. Well, 5 years prior to that, Anna of Denmark was already doing that in Odense. There's a painting by Rubens and Snijders, Snijders was the guy who usually collaborated with Rubens to paint things like the animals and the fruits and parts of the pictures, right? Rubens would do the human figures and they collaborated, right? So the result would be the best. And in this picture that Anna had in Odense, there's two nude women laying while a satyr is looking upon them because they're taking a nap after a long day hunting. So this is what Anna had hung in her hunting lodge when she would bring people next to her picture. And you've seen this picture. It's on Gemma's wall cover. And this is the palace, actually.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Oatlands Palace is where Henry VIII married Catherine Howard. That's the Tudor connection.
Exactly. And Mary I was there, lived there, and Edward and Elizabeth. So this was not a palace that she had built, but she had Inigo Jones rebuilt some parts of it, refurbish it, and build up a gallery that was half outside and half inside. I'm not sure how that worked. It had maybe it was glass or something, but that's where she hung this picture of herself in what has been described as, fashion that has male elements, even
very masculine.
And that's what I wanted to bring up about Anna too. And these pictures of nude women, amongst other pictures, because we have an inventory of it in 1617 of things that she had inherited from her predecessors, and she had a strong taste for Flemish art. So that's another connection to Isabel Clara Eugenia, who met Rubens and then was the one to recommend Rubens to go to Spain and meet her brother. And that's how Rubens becomes involved in the Spanish Habsburgs with the Spanish Habsburgs, and that's what Alejandro studied for his PhD in New York 27 years ago.
You didn't have to say the year. You didn't have to say how many years. Poor Alejandro.
No, he's fine with that.
Well, if we're talking about the 90s, I graduated from high school in the 90s, so
Oh, what year? Let's bring it up.
let's not. I would
The
rather
90s.
I would rather people just make their own assumptions at how old I am.
Oh, okay. I graduated in 2002, Rebecca.
Yeah, okay. Well, my daughter was
So
born
that
it.
so
My
guys,
daughter
I'm
was
younger than
born 2 years.
Rebecca. That's what I'm saying.
It's like my daughter was born in 2004, so I'm a little bit older.
Oh, sorry about that, Rebecca. You're a bit older.
It's all right. It just
Don't
makes
worry,
me.
because now I meet people and I'm like, and they're like, I was born in 2015 or I don't know. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, if
Especially
I
when you
get
meet, you have kids and you meet other kids in parties or you have an
yeah.
event, something, and then you start to hear 1984. It was the year I was born in, and that starts
Oh
to
my gosh.
a long time ago.
You reach a certain age, I think, and I know we're kind of going off topic here, but you reach a certain age where you go, man, I'm getting old. When you go into a place and they're like, if you were born before this date, you can't drink alcohol or you can't buy
Right,
cigarettes or whatever. And you
right.
look at that date and you go, oh my
What places
gosh.
do you go to? Yeah, I think for me, it hits me really hard when they start putting the music that I like in like vintage or oldies, and I'm like, what?
I know.
What do you mean oldies?
Yeah. See, for
But
me,
the early
like,
2000s, when I graduated high school, and you're like, the summer after graduating high school is having tons of fun. That music now that was like in Spain, we always have one thing called the summer hit, no, la canción del verano. And you play those now, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that was a long time ago," and you're like, "Okay."
yeah, no, God. It makes me feel old when I hear like New Kids on the Block are considered like oldies. And
Yes,
that was
yes,
like my crush as a kid was the New Kids on the Block.
yeah. Rebecca likes to talk about beards and her crushes on the podcast. Anyone else you want to bring up?
I do. Yes, I do want to bring something up because I was really bummed out and I sent you a message last night. We were talking about Charmed in a recent
Oh
episode, and
yes,
I'm
yes,
so bummed out to hear that Julia McMahon died a couple days ago and
yeah.
he played Cole Turner on Charmed and and he was in many other things, but
Yeah, no, he was definitely a dude that you recognize, and
yeah.
I think that's another part of that, right? I think I realize that I'm, old because there's so many people that that music that I was telling you is very important to listen to the music that made you happy when you
Yeah.
were a teenager. That a lot of those people are dead now.
I
My
know.
favorite singers are dead, and they were young when I was a teenager, so it feels weird because musicians' lives are a bit intense sometimes.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite, one of my favorites of all time, Amy Winehouse.
Mm.
She went way too early, and one of the ones that hit me the hardest, and I had a tough week when that happened, was the Cranberries, Dolores O'Riordan.
Yes.
She was my
That's
favorite.
see my big tough ones were Chris Cornell,
Oh yes, I
Scott
remember that.
Weiland, Chester Benefit, what's Chester? Yeah, from Lincoln
Oh
Park.
yes, that
Yeah.
was bad
Though and
too.
those were all really close to each other too. It was like boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom. That was devastating. It was yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, and then speaking of Amy Winehouse, that's 27 Club. It's
yes.
just there's certain times in your life you have to be careful.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, back to parallel lives.
Anyway, back to these. I do wonder though if it was the same for people back in the 16th and 17th century. Let's say if an artist died unexpectedly and it was a big artist, did they all feel like we do now when we feel attached to these celebrities because we
They
see
do. They
them?
did. They did. I have a good friend called Ruth Martinez Alcorlo, who was the one to write the biography of Isabel Junior, the oldest daughter of of Isabel of Castile and Fernando of Aragon, and she writes about this, about when a prince, a great prince, and for example, Anna of Denmark, her eldest son, who was a patron of the arts in his own right and very
Yeah.
loved, dies. So there is a lot of literature saying it's the worst thing that ever happened to England, and in Spain is the same when Prince John
Oh,
dies.
interesting.
And when Isabel Junior dies in a dramatic way when she's giving birth, you know, there is literature after that, yes, because the humanist court is all about, it's also about feeling and empathy and
Mhm.
imagine these Isabel and Fernando fighting to first to have her on the throne, then they have this beautiful family, but then the kids die in like before them in like 4 years.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Imagine, and then having to say bye to Catherine at the end after Maria had left too. She has a little baby grandson born from Isabel, and she's dead. And he dies when he's only 2.
Oh.
And he's buried with Isabel and Fernando in Granada. There's a little coffin there. So there's a lot of literature associated with that because, grief is very, very hard. And I think for me, actually, coming back to the music, maybe I'm just obsessed with music, but music does help a lot with grief.
It
Is
does.
and they did use that because obviously when someone died, they had great celebrations of their lives because if someone's important, you have to, usually make a fuss. There's a very good article on how when Juana of Castile dies, there's big celebrations, funerary celebrations in London. Why? Because she dies when Mary and Philip are King and Queen of England.
Yeah.
So see how it's all connected?
Yeah.
And all these celebrations, like the saucy parties that Anna of Denmark surely had in Oatlands with all the naked ladies around her, and when somebody died, the Baroque courts were intense, but very dramatic and very over the top. But the 16th century for celebrations and music and that was the same. It was just a time where that was a language to express happiness, grief, like now in pop music or
Yeah.
any other type of music. So we haven't changed much.
No, I feel like everything we've talked about today, I can relate to. We're talking about pictures. And one of my favorite things is I have a picture of my late grandma and I on my refrigerator that every time I look at it, it reminds me of her and it makes me happy.
Exactly.
And every time I hear polka music, it reminds me of her and it makes me happy because, we do feel this connection with music and with
Uh,
imagery.
it's right. And I remember something that I can't forget. One time there was a big flood in Spain. Spain, has interesting climate, and in some parts of Spain, sometimes there's big floods. And there was one in Valencia, a really bad one last year. And
Yes.
so that's and people sometimes lose everything, everything. And I remember someone being interviewed that was crying, but there were happy tears, and she said, I have my pictures." And she had her albums of pictures.
Yeah.
She'd lost everything else, but she was happy that she'd saved that. And that was saved because she said, everything else is gone, but this somehow survived. And she was
Right.
holding on to and crying because those images that, we Hans Holbein would paint it or Dürer would paint it. Now we take pictures. It's the same thing, you
Yeah.
know? Imagine all those people, and I talked about that starting my conference in the Prado Museum about the portrait exchanges between England and Spain. We even know people we don't know because we've seen their picture.
Yes.
That's why famous people are famous, right?
Yes.
You recognize their faces, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're paid to be on a billboard, right? So is that the power of seeing someone's face helps you to have a conversation with that person, even if that person is not there. In that sense, that's why Isabel Clara Eugenia and Anna of Denmark exchanged pictures because they wanted an alliance. And that's why Anna of Denmark, when she lost that little picture of Isabel Clara Eugenia, was like, James, stop it right now. We need to find this picture. I love that story.
Hold everything.
Hold everything. So she clearly wore it when she was hunting. So she clearly wore it when she was wearing something like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and it must have unpinned or something. But she realized. So, by the way, speaking of hunting, Isabel Clara Eugenia wrote a little treatise on hunting, and she was known to be. So these women admired each other. They had girl crushes on each other. That's what I'm saying. We always talk about the guys and this and that. Women also were crushing on each other because they were very cool, you know? And Isabel Clara Eugenia was the marketing mother. I mean, she was amazing. Painted by Rubens many times, by other leading artists, and also just knowing what her position was as heiress to all this great women, starting with from Isabel of Castile, but also because she was the daughter of Philip II of Spain, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love the way it always, like when we talk about these women, how it seemed like they really lifted each other up. And I think that's
Yeah.
something in present day that we talk a lot about is how I feel like women nowadays don't necessarily do that as much as we should. I think there's a group who try,
Are
we
you trying to
try.
say something to me,
No,
Rebecca?
no, I'm just saying, I guess that's one thing that hasn't changed because I'm sure back in the 16th and 17th century, there were women that were jealous of the other one and they wanted to do whatever they could to knock them down and make them
Mhm.
less important. But then there were also the women who lifted each other up and said, "Hey, you're doing a great job. You're amazing. I admire you." And I just,
Yeah.
the part of me feels like we've lost a little bit of that in present day. Like we don't do that as much as we should.
Hmm.
I mean, you and I do,
Yeah.
obviously, we do.
Maybe what we need to do is, and this is just advice that no one needs to follow. Anyone who can do whatever they want. But I think it more than women and men, it's just when you find connections with people that are like-minded and have the same values. I think values are really important.
Yeah, that's true. Good,
You
good point.
know, so grab onto those people.
Yeah.
If it's a man, if it's a woman, who cares? You know, friendship is one of the purest um, feelings you can have, and one of the strongest bonds. Love is like sometimes a bit tricky, but if you can have friends until you
Yeah,
die.
yeah, you can. It is
And
important.
I mean, I've been away from very good friends for 10 years because I've been living in America. We still have a strong bond because we are in each other's lives, and it's beautiful to have friendship. So, and
Yeah.
I think these women, it shows that even through distance, sometimes you can make an emotional connection. I think these women just admired each other because they knew how difficult the other one had it, because they shared interests. Like, Anna of Denmark would have read Isabel Clara Eugenia's treatise. It's not just pictures they're exchanging a lot more things. If Rubens is coming to the court, of course he's going to not just bring pictures, he's going to tell everything. She wears her hair like this, and
Mm.
she puts this thing on, and or she uses this as her perfume, or it's imagine when those pictures were unveiled, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that they were exchanging pictures. There's a description. Ambassadors are of our favorite topics. There's a description of how these portrait exchanges happened, and it's usually in the ambassadors and in the embassy. Speaking of the embassy, that's another place I'll be in London very shortly.
Oh,
They
that's like,
have There's another very interesting project I've been involved in. Spanish Embassy in London is one of the coolest places in London, very, very, very close to Buckingham Palace, and it's been refurbished and it's looking better than ever. They have an amazing portrait collection. They've been kind enough because the ambassador really likes art and history. He's let me go there, study it. They've had a restoration project. So I am very excited to continue working on their portraits, and they have some amazing portraits, amongst which there's one of Juana the First of Castile.
oh, yeah. Did you recently share an image on social media of you at the embassy?
I did because I was there this spring when I was preparing for my exhibition. I was also visiting the embassy. I keep busy. I did so many things when I went I always do so many. London has that, It's just the bustling and the embassy is next to Buckingham Palace. If you go there, I'm going to go there very soon. You can see the change of the guard. You can see the King's Gallery. They always have because the royal collection is very, very amazing. It's not that easy to see sometimes because it's in this palace, in this palace. So the
Yeah.
King's Gallery is always a good place for exhibitions on the amazing holdings that the Royal Collection has. And, in the case of Isabel Clara Eugenia, you have to go to the Prado Museum.
There's the Prado plug for today. I knew it was coming. It was coming.
Well, yes,
I mean,
it's
from
it's the
everything,
best museum in the world. Why wouldn't I want to plug it every
it's
time I can?
I've never been there, but just from being on this show and,
You can do a virtual visit. They have a virtual visit of the. I think they've done a very good job they've realized that, there's so many people, not everybody can just pack their bags and go to Madrid, right?
yeah, yeah,
So they've done a very good job because they have such a big following of trying to like make everyone feel included. They do that through social media, but also through
yeah.
all the content they put out on their website with all these documentaries, not just on the female perspective, on everything they do. They hang all their conferences. It's just a hub of art history knowledge if you're interested in the Spanish monarchy, but also in the relations that's what I specialize of the Spanish monarchy with other monarchies like the Royal Collection Trust and because of the English monarchs. One thing I wanted to say, the Prado Museum has the best portrait of James the First of England.
Yes, you've told me this.
Yes, I saw it in the deposit there. Alejandro showed it to me, and we agreed that it was a very, very good portrait. He's wearing shoes with pearls.
Mm.
He's looking more fashionable than any man has ever looked. He has, and the matching portrait of Anna of Denmark with that portrait is in the National Portrait Gallery in London. So
Mm.
I don't know. I think I need to make some calls and see if we can get them together or something. Maybe. Wouldn't it
Well,
be cool?
yes, that would be cool.
In the 1636 inventory of the Alcázar in Madrid, this great big palace with a portrait collection that had been amassed since Isabel of Castile, there was an inventory made to see what they had. The picture of this picture of James was with a picture of Anne, with a view of London, with a picture of Philip III of Spain, with a picture of his wife, with a picture of a view of Madrid. They're all
Oh,
hanging together. So the two royal couples and the two views of the capital cities.
interesting.
So that was a space probably to bring the English diplomats when they were trying to, because it would be the king, and they're all in full length format. They're all the same size, and they were exchanged.
Hmm.
So in England, I'm sure they had a similar space when that same layout was because they were trying to make an agreement. And they worked very hard for that. But just imagine coming into that room where you saw James with his pearl shoes, Anna looking like a vision because she was tall, amazing looking, and all that. And then Philip III and Margaret of Austria, another Margaret of Austria, look amazing in pictures that they are in the Royal Collection Trust, but also in the Prado. Maybe we should put all the pictures together at one point.
I feel like you're just trying to give me more work too here for this
Yes.
episode. We talked about this on the last one. Every time Emma mentions an image, I have to put it up on the screen for those of you who are watching the video. And if you're not watching the video, stop this episode, go back to YouTube and Spotify and watch it instead because you'll get to see a lot more.
But I think it's amazing that in this palace in Madrid, they would have a room where they would have the pictures of James and Anna of Denmark, a view of London, the pictures of Philip III of Spain and his Margaret, and a view of Madrid. It's just incredible. It's just
Yeah, it
like, oh,
is.
let's just go to the English room. Maybe it was
Yeah,
called the English room. Who knows?
maybe. Yeah, very well could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay,
Not
well,
like Oldland's Palace, where it was all naked ladies painted by Rubens and Snyders for Anna of Denmark, where she was the sole protagonist there.
I think it's interesting that this was hung at Oatlands, which was like a hunting lodge for Henry VIII. So it's like out in the country, and they're like, "Yeah, I'll hang
Lots
up
of
all
things
my."
happen in the hunting lodges, Rebecca. It's not
Oh,
just the hunting. That's what the picture is saying.
I know.
I said I dropped a couple hints.
I've been waiting
Anna,
all episode to say that this is historical porn.
yeah, historical porn. Anna of Denmark liked to party a lot, liked to dress up, liked to,
Yeah.
what happens in the hunting lodge stays in
Stays
the
in the hunting
hunting.
lodge. Yeah. I love that she wasn't so uptight. I think that's the impression that history has given her for so long is she's this uptight queen who was angry at her husband. No,
You know
she really
why?
wasn't.
Because she turned to the Catholic faith, because she was a strong woman and this and that. But women are just like men, complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. She'd like to indulge in a little party here and there, and that's in the sources that let's think about them as complex, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's good.
Yeah. Like Isabel of Castile was not a prude. She was just extremely Catholic, but I think they understood things in a very different way. And
Yeah.
I think they indulge more in the mundane things than we think, much more than we think.
They were people. They were real people. They weren't just
There were
these
people, powerful people. They
characters.
had a lot of money, a lot of influence. They had a lot of people to impress and entertain.
Yeah.
Those ambassadors were having fun, Rebecca. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
they
saying.
were. They were. But I always feel like these episodes are a good like starting point for anybody who might now find both of these women interesting, and then you can go start doing your own research. And Emma's given us quite a few book suggestions today to
Yes,
do
and
that.
especially, like the connection with Rubens, for example. We know so much about Rubens, but again, the context, and women have not been as studied. Yes, in the case of Anna of Denmark with Gemma's book, but before that, like you said, she was considered that it's just changing so quickly, and it's because we're studying the women in a new light, I think, in many
Yes,
respects.
it's exciting to me.
Yes.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, was there anything that we missed about these two
No, I think we
women?
covered everything.
Okay,
Did we
good.
mention the history porn?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. If I
Oh,
mentioned
good.
that historical part.
That was my only talking point of the
I know
day.
that was my only point. That was like in my bullet points. That was like every single bullet point.
We have to add something to Rubens's portfolio.
Yeah. I might have graduated in the 90s, but my humor and mentality is that of a 12-year-old boy.
Exactly. And that's why we're friends.
That's why we're friends. Well, Emma, this has been so fun talking about these two women in history again and looking at how their lives paralleled. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for this series because I feel like every time we just come up with another great connection and it's just been a blast.
I was uh, I was very impressed with myself that I knew so many things about the 17th century because it's not my realm,
Yeah,
so it's becoming my realm too because these ladies are so exciting too.
they are.
And because we can collaborate, the specialists in the 17th century are telling us such interesting things. And then you, as a specialist in the 15th, 16th century, see, oh, that is okay, that's where it started. And these people are just taking it to the next level, as you should, because who
Yeah.
doesn't like a little drama, Baroque drama? So
Um,
I think we'll do more Baroque lives. I love it. We have
I,
to talk about, I don't know, Caravaggio, for example,
ooh. Okay. Well,
for
now
the next episode.
if you
Maybe.
if you're listening, we always love your suggestions. Keep sending them in who you think would be good examples for parallel lives. I think somebody recently also,
Rebecca and a 12-year-old boy.
well, there'd be a lot of parallels. Oh, gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, somebody suggested, I think it was Catherine Gray and Arbella Stewart. And I
yes,
don't know if I
that's a
mentioned
good
that
one.
on the last episode, but I thought that one was an interesting one too. But I really
Yeah.
like how you've been picking people from, let's say, the Spanish monarchy or from Europe and picking
Mm-hmm.
somebody from England or Scotland. Like I like to see those contrasts there and how these people were similar, even though they were living in different places.
I think this helps also to realize, because sometimes the Brits can get a bit insular, that Britain is part of Europe. I said this before.
Yeah.
I think I'm still going to be allowed in Britain on Wednesday. But, as someone, and we mentioned, I have an Irish background, but I grew up going to England to my grandmother's house and my aunt's house, who lived in England many, many years. I have a love for England that is amazing. So to me, to make those connections between Spain, England, and that it's a way to say, hey, we're cool when we're together, you know?
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. What a great way to end this episode, Emma. Thank you so much for joining me again today. It's been a blast.
Thank you, Rebecca. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to Tudors, Dynasty, and Beyond. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss a new release. And if you loved it, leave a quick review. It helps more history lovers find the show. Want to support the podcast and get bonus content? Head to patreon.com/tutorsdynasty. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. Join the conversation with Rebecca on social media at Tudors Dynasty. Until next time.